Hello, second graders. Here is this week's learning video. So in ELA this week, or reading, you're going to be learning about pollinators by reading, writing, and watching videos. And in math, you will learn about partitioning rectangles into equal parts. So let's begin with reading. What do these creatures have in common? If you guess that they're all pollinators, you're right. Here are some more pictures of different kinds of pollinators. But what exactly is a pollinator? A pollinator is an animal that causes plants to make fruit or seeds. They do this by moving pollen from one part of the flower to another part. Do you recognize any of the creatures in this slide? This one here, this is a lemur, a bee, a butterfly, a bat, a hummingbird, and this little guy, that's a honey possum. So these 6 different animals are all different types of pollinators. Now, you may have heard the word pollen before, but weren't exactly sure what it means. So here are some photographs of pollen. This first one is a really up-close photo, and the pollen are those little yellow clumps. And the second photo is pollen on somebody's hand. Around this time of year, if you wipe your hand along the outside of your window on your house, or maybe on one of your family members' cars, if you get that yellowy powder on your hand, that's pollen that comes from the plants and the trees. So pollen is the substance that causes plants to form seeds. Both flowering plants and conifers, plants that grow seeds inside, make pollen. So plants that have pollen need those to make seeds so the plants can continue to develop. So now that we've talked a little bit about pollinators and pollen, what questions do you have? What might you be wondering about pollen and pollinators? And at the end of the week, we'll discuss what we've learned. But one question I have for you is, why are pollinators so important? You might hear in the news or in different books that it's important for bees, and our bee population is lower than it has been in years past. Why is that important? Why do we need bees? Well, bees are just one example of a pollinator, but pollen fertilizes the plant, and only fertilized plants can make fruit or seeds. So here in this picture here are all different kinds of fruits and vegetables and seeds that we eat and enjoy, and without pollinators, those plants wouldn't be able to grow. Now let's move on to math. What do you notice about this rectangle? When I showed this slide to my class yesterday, I heard a few different responses. Somebody had said that the rectangle was broken up into equal squares. Somebody had mentioned that there were 15 squares in that rectangle. Somebody mentioned the colors of how the rectangle was shaded. Do you have anything else to add? What do you notice? If you noticed that the previous rectangle was broken up or divided into squares, you were noticing that the rectangle was partitioned. Partition means to split or separate something into different pieces. Shapes can be partitioned into equal-sized pieces or different-sized pieces. And in math this week, we are interested in taking a closer look at shapes that are partitioned into equal-sized pieces. So you'll notice this rectangle here is partitioned, meaning it's separated or split, and those cubes that it's separated into are all equal size pieces. Now look at these 4 rectangles. Are these rectangles partitioned equally? If you guessed no, you're right. But how do you know that they're not divided equally? Now take a look at these rectangles. Are these rectangles partitioned equally? How do you know? If you said yes, these are partitioned equally, you're right. Here's the previous rectangle that we looked at. What equation or equations would match this rectangle? And a hint for you is think back to arrays and a repeated addition. Now thinking back to arrays, you'll notice that this rectangle has 5 columns. Remember, columns go up and down. And you'll notice that this rectangle has 3 rows. Rows go side to side, so 1, 2, 3 rows. And either equation, or maybe you came up with both, that match this rectangle would be 5 plus 5 plus 5, because each row has 5 squares, and altogether there are 15. So that's one equation you could have come up with. The other equation would be 3 plus 3 plus 3 plus 3 plus 3 equals 15. And that comes from 3 in each of these 5 columns. So either of these equations would match the way this rectangle is partitioned. Thank you for watching. Be sure to reach out to your teachers with any questions and turn in your assigned work pages to your teacher this week. And for related math activities, you can go to the iReady app on Clever. And for more reading on pollinators, check out the different books on Epic.